As we approach the 6 o'clock hour, Hurricane Milton is hitting parts of Orlando as we speak. It continues moving across the state of Florida. After making landfall at about 8:30 last night near Siesta Key in Sarasota as a Category 3 hurricane.
Yeah, the threat for destructive and life-threatening storm surge, it still continues this morning. Take a look at this video. Areas like Fort Myers saw floodwaters overtake the hotels there, other structures, and the roadways and streets.
Hurricane Milton leaving a path of destruction across the west coast of Florida. A crane collapsed. This happened at a construction site in St. Petersburg. And as the sun begins to come up this morning, we're going to see more and more damage.
And also a big story for us this morning as well. Heavy winds causing the rooftop of the Tropicana field to rip off. That facility was set to host about 10,000 people with cots on the field. So we're still waiting to figure out exactly how they're doing this morning.
And that stadium has been there for decades.
Yeah.
And you could see what happened there when that storm came roaring through. The destruction all the way to South Florida as well. Several tornado warnings. I bet your phone was blowing up yesterday with those National Weather Service alerts. Several tornado warnings across South Florida, including this one west of Weston near I-75, where we saw that tornado just forming on the traffic cameras.
Around 10 o'clock in the morning. Well, Milton at this point has been downgraded to a Category 1 storm as it moves out of our state, leaving around 3 million people without power this morning.
All right. Getting close to the 6 o'clock hour here on your Thursday. We appreciate you spending it with us here on NBC6 Today. I'm Chris Anderson.
And I'm Constance Jones. NBC6 is on your side as many areas look to recover from the storm and then brace, of course, for the remaining impacts.
Such a big storm, such a powerful storm. So we want to get out to Julia Bagg. She has been in Tampa trying to make her way up to St. Petersburg, where that crane collapsed at a construction site. Problem is, you're running into some roadblocks. We see those flashing lights behind you. A lot of roadblocks in your way to try to get to where you're going.
Certainly are, Chris, whether it's down trees or just too much water on the road. And remember, the danger, right, especially in the dark, is you don't know just how deep the water is. And we're not the only ones stuck. Take a look behind me here. You see those headlights. Those are at least a dozen or so linemen waiting to get to Clearwater, trying to get to an area near where we were headed, but they are stuck as well. They cannot pass because of the high water. And I'll ask my photographer, Tony, to just kind of tilt down for us to see some of that water here. This is just a little bit. It doesn't even tell the full story because across the street, it actually gets higher. It's in the dark. You see the flashing lights of the sheriff's deputies from Hillsborough County here, not letting anybody get past. So just across the street from me, in this direction, you can see there's kind of a current. There's so much water moving that way. So those utility trucks just not able to make it right now down to where they're needed. So many people without power. We've been telling you more than 3 million households, businesses across the state of Florida in the dark this morning, and just a high concentration, of course, here in the Tampa Bay area. And you can go from one neighborhood that might have a little bit of power and then none, and where we are, certainly the power is knocked out. But a big problem, as you can see, is just trying to get to where they're going for these linemen. So we'll send it back to you, Chris. Constance.
Julia, I saw on social media that you were, you know what, we've got our special report coming up right now with NBC News.
And Hoda Kotb.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Coming on the air early this morning to bring you the very latest on Hurricane Milton.
It tore into Florida as a powerful Category 3, of course, adding new misery to that region already left ravaged by Helene. Seen a lot of flooding, a lot of damage overnight, several deaths being reported from tornadoes that were produced by that storm. Right now, more than 3 million people have no power this morning.
We've got a team of correspondents spread out across the state. Al is here, too. He's tracking the very latest. Let's get started with NBC's Tom Yamas. He's in hard-hit Sarasota. He's been covering the storm all night long. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, guys, good morning to you. It was a very dangerous and wild night yesterday here in Sarasota. Hurricane Milton making landfall just north of us in Cedar Key. But once that eye passed over us, we felt the backside of that hurricane. Hurricane force winds north of 100 miles per hour. At one point, we couldn't even get a reading of how strong the winds were here because the gauges we were watching had broken. This is just some of the damage we're seeing this morning. And I'll be completely honest with you, we've just ventured out for the first time tonight. This entire area was flooded yesterday. I'd say it was, from what we saw, 5 to a 6-foot storm surge. But again, we're going to wait for the official records later this morning. It's unclear because it's still dark everywhere in Sarasota of what happened last night and the extent of the damage. But as you guys mentioned at the top of the broadcast, it felt last night like there was nowhere to hide in Florida, whether it be from hurricanes or tornadoes. There was a lot of danger last night, a lot of violence when it came to the weather. People were scrambling, and unfortunately, in some cases, several died.
Yeah, Tom, you, in fact, were one of those people scrambling last night. You've covered many hurricanes. You were standing out in the elements. And there was a moment that was pretty dramatic where you guys just had to kind of take off and take cover. Let's take a quick look at it.
Welcome back to our live coverage of Hurricane Milton. The situation here in Sarasota is starting to turn dire. At first, we had, okay, we're going to go. We got to go.
Tom, you've covered hurricanes again. Moments like that can get frightening, projectiles flying, all kinds of things. Tell us what was going on.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. We had just started reporting on the eye, and within the eye, it's very calm. I mean, it felt like any Saturday night in Sarasota in the summer. I mean, there was no rain, there was no wind. And then our meteorologist, Bill Cairns, told me, look, be careful because it's going to quickly change in the backside of that hurricane. Once it whips around, it's going to be the strongest part of the hurricane. And Hoda and Savannah, I got to tell you, we were out there. 1 minute, it was calm. The next minute, the wind just suddenly picked up. And as we came out of a break, we started to report, started to anchor that portion of the show. A transformer behind us exploded. I didn't see it. I saw the flash, but the crew in front of us, I sort of saw their reaction, and it was time to go in. Everybody was okay. Everybody was fine. We broadcast the entire night from inside of a concrete structure. It was a 5-floor garage where we were able to stay up for 4 hours, anchoring throughout the storm. We anchored the landfall, and then after that, and again, everyone was fine. It was just in that moment that it was a little bit dangerous. I got to be honest with you, around that time, there were several people who were out in their trucks, and they were driving around in the eye, having a good time, you know, doing donuts. I mean, being incredibly reckless. And then at that moment, some of them were still on the road. So I hope they were able to find, get to higher ground, or at least get to a place where they were safe, because the eye, from the moment the eye hit to the backside of that hurricane was, like I said, within minutes, it got incredibly dangerous.
I know, it's so eerie that in the eye of a storm, it is totally quiet, like Tom was saying, like a normal Wednesday afternoon, and then all of a sudden the backside comes and hits. All right, Tom, thank you.
Wow. All right. Well, we want to go about 15 miles to the north of Sarasota, where Dylan is this morning. Bradenton, Florida. Dylan, what are you seeing there?
Hey, good morning, guys. You know, to play off of what Tom was just saying, we also were in the eye of the storm last night, and, you know, it went from bad to calm to worse. I mean, the backside of the storm hit with such strong winds. I ended up spending most of the night sleeping on the floor in the bathroom because I was worried my windows were going to blow out. Fortunately, we were in a hotel where a lot of people evacuated their homes to get to because it was a concrete structure and because the windows were rated for winds up to a Category 5 hurricane. So the windows did not blow out. But I will say it was scary last night when you're hearing the winds howling outside. And now getting out this morning and driving around, this is not far from where we reported from yesterday morning in Bradenton, and a hard-hit area from Hurricane Helene. They just start to clean up, and then the storm surge comes back in. In Sarasota, we reported a storm surge of about 10 feet. All of that lifted all of the debris, and then on the backside of the storm where the eye wall came through, winds gusted up to nearly 100 miles per hour once again, and then we started to see the trees coming down. The tops of these palm trees were just sheared off, creating even more damage for these poor folks to have to clean up and come back to their homes after a serious 1-2 punch. Now, we were out this morning. We saw nothing but the sheriffs driving around kind of searching to make sure everybody was okay. They said for residents, stay off the road, especially until the sun comes back out so that they can do their job. And then you can see once the sun comes out just how bad the damage is, guys.
All right, Dylan Dreyer. Dylan, thank you so much.
I don't know if we've shown the video yet, but in Tampa, the top of the Tropicana field, which was supposed to be used as a shelter, sheared off. That's how the winds are. Let's turn to Al.
Yep.
So tell us where Milton is now, where it's headed, but also did it live up to the fears?
Well, look, we'll know more in the next hour or so once daylight happens, but I believe it did. And I think, trying to make sure we made sure you knew what was going to be going on. This is the third landfalling hurricane in Florida this year. That's tied for the most on record. 5 U.S. landfalls this season. That's the second most on record, and the 10th major hurricane to make landfall in 8 years. That's an EF3 or more. Right now, it's a Category 1 storm 10 miles northeast of Cape Canaveral, the Space Coast, 85-mile-per-hour winds. It's moving northeast now at 18 miles per hour, and then we'll just rocket off into the Atlantic, and that'll be that. But in the meantime, we're still dealing with 11 million people at risk for flash flooding, river flooding. There's still extensive street flooding and road closures because of debris and all sorts of detritus out there. Flooding rainfalls still hanging around from Melbourne up to the Palm Coast. Additional 1 to 3 inches of rain in the next hour or two. Considerable flash flooding still hanging around, so we're going to be watching that. And again, rainfall generally from 3 to 7 inches. But in St. Petersburg in the last 24 hours, almost 18.5 inches of rain at one point between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. 5 inches of rain. That's a 1 in 1,000 rainfall event, 1 in 1,000 year rainfall event. Right now, wind gusts 72 Orlando, Jacksonville 25, Melbourne 79, and then we still have storm surges to deal with along the east coast of Florida. West coast, those storm surges will be coming down. Guys?
All right, Al, we'll check back. I just mentioned a couple minutes ago this scene in Tampa. It's at the north of where the storm made landfall, but this is it, Tropicana Field. Now, I mean, this is the baseball field, and I think it was to be used as a shelter in worst case scenario. I don't think it was being used last night, thankfully, but look what happened there.
They had all the cots out and ready to go, and the top just sheared right off of that place. It just shows the power of that wind. Dylan, by the way, was just reporting from Bradenton. We happen to have the city's police chief, Melanie Bevins, with us now. Chief Bevins, so good to have you with us today. I know you guys, the sun hasn't even come up yet. You guys have a lot of work ahead of you, so tell us what's top on your list.
We've already had a couple crews out there before daylight hits, because I know when daylight hits, everybody's going to want to get out there trying to clear some limbs and trees out of major roadways. I have officers with chainsaws, and yes, there is a lot of debris on the road. Not a lot of standing water that we expected, but as I heard on your report here, lots of trees down, lots of palm fronds down.
And what's your sense, Chief, of people? Were they evacuated? Have you been receiving calls of distress?
We had one rescue operation at about 4 o'clock this morning. A tree fell into a home. My question would be, why were you at the home? But we were able to get in there as soon as we could safely and cut up the tree and rescue them. But largely, I think everybody did listen. And for those who didn't, it may be a recovery effort this morning, more so.
One of the things that happens after a storm, as you said, the sun comes up and residents want to go out and find out. And sometimes some of the worst injuries and even deaths happen afterwards because people get tangled up in power lines, or they think they can do it, or they wade through standing water and don't realize what's in there. What's your message to them?
That's exactly true. Everybody wants to go check their home. I want to go check my home. My officers do, but that's not what's important right now. What's important is that we make some safe pathways to those areas. Down power lines, that's going to be a threat. We still have some standing water in low areas. A lot of cars got stuck last night. We couldn't help them, and so they're still there blocking roadways. Lights are out. I'm just going to guess. I don't know. I haven't talked to anybody official, but probably more than 60% of our city is without electricity right now. So we're going to have people getting up. They're going to be starting generators. They're going to make mistakes with how to do that. And so everybody just needs to be mindful that we're all on the same mission, which is to eventually get back to our homes safe and sound.
All right. Bradenton Police Chief Melanie Bevin. Chief Bevin, thank you so much for being with us on a really busy morning. We appreciate it.
Well, that concludes our NBC News special report. Of course, we're going to have the very latest on Milton throughout the morning on Today. I'm Savannah Guthrie alongside Hoda Kotb. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in a bit.
Of course, that's what everyone's going to be waiting for, the sun to come up and the damage to be seen.
With some of the new video that they shared with us and the better look at Tropicana Field where, originally it was a small section, but it looked
the entire area
Pretty
looked
much
like it
the
was
whole
shredded.
roof ripped off. Our coverage is going to continue right after the break. 6:11 is your time. You're watching NBC6 Today.